The air in the subterranean stone vault was cold, a shocking contrast to the warmth of the hall above. Two identical figures, adult women of 20 years, lay side by side upon the polished bench, their expensive pastel pink silk gowns rumpled and pinned tight by the unforgiving silken cords. They were beautiful, arrogant, and now utterly restrained, their fate resting in the hands of the matriarch, who sat observing with the calm detachment of a high priestess. The honor of House Greystone demanded that their mocking laughter be purged by reciprocal laughter. A maid's finger-precise and merciless dance lightly across the arch of one bare, pale foot. The scream that erupted was instantly strangled by a peal of helpless, escalating giggles, an admission of defeat that echoed not as joy, but as the raw, unmasking sound of adult pride shattering against ritualized consequence. Asterisk the manor of Greystone. A formidable structure of weathered stone dominated its hill, its walls catching the late afternoon sun in a fleeting warm golden glow. Within its expansive heart, the great hall was a chamber of immense prestige. Torches cast restless, dramatic light against towering banners bearing the ancient crest, a powerful silver stag on a crimson field. This evening, the hall was host to an important diplomatic dinner, attended by influential guests from neighboring estates. The matriarch of Greystone, Lady Isabella, a woman of 42 years, moved among her guests with flawless, regal calm. Her gown, a river of deep red velvet, flowed seamlessly, and her golden hair, worn beneath a simple, dignified circlet, caught the light with every movement. Yet, the centerpiece of the evening, her twin daughters, were the source of a deep, mounting internal crisis. Lady Cassandra and Lady Juliana, both precisely 20 years of age, were stunningly identical, true twins in their dark beauty and their inherited arrogance. They were clad in matching gowns of shimmering pastel pink silk, the delicate, costly fabric rippling like liquid light with every step, ensuring every gaze in the hall was magnetically drawn to them. Unfortunately, their beauty was matched only by their profound disrespect. Throughout the carefully orchestrated dinner, their manners were a flagrant violation of the Greystone Noble Code. They whispered loudly during their mother's crucial introductions to the foreign delegation, giggled pointedly during the blessing offered by the estate priest, and cast sly, derisive glances at the attending servants. The crisis peaked when a young, highly efficient maid stumbled, causing a splash of red wine to stain the polished stone floor. The twin sisters did not hesitate. They exchanged venomous, amused glances, and one muttered cruel, audible words about the maid's clumsiness, words that carried clearly across the vast, echoing table. A profound wave of uncomfortable silence passed through the noble guests. Some exchanged uneasy looks with their neighbors. Others fixed their eyes firmly on their plates, unwilling to acknowledge the obvious display of the household's lack of internal discipline. Lady Isabella missed nothing. She did not once raise her voice, nor did her calm, practiced smile falter that beneath the surface a cold, focused fury was beginning to solidify. The honor of Greystone was not merely her duty. It was the sacred core of her existence, and nothing wounded her more deeply than to witness her daughters treat that honor with such juvenile carelessness. When the feast finally concluded, and the guests were smoothly escorted to their assigned chambers, Lady Isabella's moment arrived. She ordered the twins to follow her to the private solar chamber. The sisters obeyed with lazy, visible shrugs, still exchanging knowing, insubordinate smirks. Their pink silk gowns whispered their defiance as they walked Dot inside the solar. The hearth burned low, casting long, dramatic shadows on the heavy, carved oak furniture. Lady Isabella stood tall and statuesque, her red velvet gown trailing behind her like a pool of fire, her golden hair gleaming. "You shamed this household tonight," she began. her voice low, yet perfectly edged with the unmistakable thread of steel. "You mock servants before noble guests. You willfully disgraced our name with your public, childish laughter." The sisters exchanged a quick, knowing glance, their lips twitching with the urge to argue. Cassandra, the more outspoken twin, whose long, dark hair fell in glossy waves, tilted her chin in a clear act of provocation. "Mother, they are only servants. Why is their dignity of any consequence? We are Greystone heirs. No one dares judge us, mother," her twin, Juliana, added with a cool smirk. "Certainly not when we look like this." She performed a slow, insulting twirl, causing her pastel pink silk gown to shimmer and flow dramatically in the firelight. Lady Isabella's face remained utterly still, but her piercing blue eyes underwent a chilling transformation, hardening like glacial ice. "You believe yourselves untouchable," she stated, the accusation heavy. "That, my daughters, is the greatest folly permissible in our lineage. Nobility resides not in the silk upon your backs, but in the honor and restraint with which you carry yourselves." The girls laughed softly, whispering to each other again, their disdain for their mother's lecture evident, as if she were a tedious, low-status tutor. That calculated dismissal was the final, irreparable strike. Lady Isabella's voice cut the charged air. "Enough. The lecture ends. Tonight you shall learn discipline, and you shall learn it in the way that precisely suits your careless tongues and mocking laughter." The twin smirks faltered, their eyes blinking in genuine surprise. "What precisely do you mean, mother?" Cassandra asked, a tremor entering her tone. Lady Isabella stepped forward, her red velvet gown sweeping across the floor like a river of judgment. "You will be taken to the chamber below. There, you will be taught what humility feels like when administered by the very laughter you weaponize." The sisters stiffened simultaneously, the realization dawning with cold clarity. Their mother had indeed employed this specific sensory correction when they were younger, but never as full adult women, and never together. "You would not dare," Juliana whispered. Her previous arrogance evaporated. "I dare because the honor of Greystone demands it," the matriarch said firmly. "Discipline recognizes no age, knows no pride, and respects no expensive silk. Even the adult heirs of Greystone are not above the necessary imposition of order." Asterisk, the chamber lay deep beneath the manor's oldest foundation, a place dedicated to formal ritual correction. It was lit entirely by dancing torches, their flames throwing restless light onto the rough stone walls. At its center stood a sturdy, ancient wooden bench, its surface polished smooth by time and use, with links of thick silken cords and leather straps waiting at the ready. The two senior maids, Alara and Maeve, both adults in their mid-30s, brought the twins in. The maids looked visibly nervous, but entirely obedient. The sisters' pastel pink silk gowns shimmered with a pathetic fragility in the harsh torchlight as they were guided to the bench, their dark hair falling in waves as they voiced their final, futile protests. "This is utterly ridiculous," Cassandra cried out, twisting. "We are 20-year-old adults. We are not children to be subjected to this spectacle." Juliana added, her voice cracking, that Lady Isabella, already calmly seated in a heavy carved chair, her red velvet gown cascading around her, raised a single silencing hand. "Bind them." The maids obeyed with a quiet efficiency born of long-standing training. The sisters were laid side by side. Their adult wrists were gently but firmly tied to the wooden arms of the bench. Their ankles were secured so they could not twist or kick free. The silk gowns rustled and pulled as they struggled, but the knots held fast. "Mother," Juliana gasped, her eyes flashing with impotent rage. "You shame us before servants." Lady Isabella leaned forward slightly, her golden hair glinting under the nearest torch. "It is preferable, daughters, To be shamed before loyal servants than to be allowed to shame the entire lineage before noble guests. This spectacle, my children, is an act of mercy. You will thank me for the restored humility one day. At her solemn nod, the maid slipped off the sisters' delicate silk slippers, exposing their bare, pale feet to the cool air of the subterranean chamber. The girls squirmed, their lingering defiance now thoroughly mingled with genuine, nervous anticipation. "You would not, mother," Cassandra whispered one last time. "Begin the doctrine," the lady commanded. The discipline of reciprocal laughter died at once. The two maids knelt at the bench. Maeve approached Cassandra, and Alara approached Juliana. They began their ritual. 4 sets of agile, trained adult fingers brushed simultaneously against the bare solace of the sisters' feet, then danced along their sensitive flanks and teased along their ribs. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The 2 young women shrieked with helpless, explosive laughter, their silk gowns shimmering and undulating as they writhed in perfect, agonizing unison. Their long, dark hair flew wildly about their faces, their identical voices echoing against the cold stone walls. "Stop. Stop this," Cassandra screamed between bursts of breathless giggling. "This is cruel and unusual." "Mother, please," Juliana cried, her face rapidly flushing a deep, mottled red from the exertion. But the matriarch sat unmoved, her eyes steady, her voice cutting calmly through the storm of shared laughter. "You utilized your own careless laughter to mock others for your amusement. Now that same laughter is turned against you, teaching you the fundamental necessity of humility. Remember this sound, your own surrender, every time you consider sneering at those who serve the honor of Greystone." The maids, empowered by the matriarch's unwavering resolve, grew more confident. Their fingers became merciless yet precise, moving rapidly across the most vulnerable areas of the adult women's bodies. The sisters twisted and writhed against the unyielding confines of the bench, their synchronization utterly broken by the individual assault of sensation. Tears streamed down their flushed cheeks. Their explosive, helpless laughter began the agonizing transition into desperate, raw sobs as their physical strength and emotional resistance completely failed. "Apologize," the lady said firmly. Her voice a simple command. The twins gasped for air, still shaking with the residual spasm of helpless giggles. "We are sorry," Cassandra choked out. "We will never, never mock again." Juliana sobbed, the words shattered by the spasms. Lady Isabella raised her hand, a gesture of finality dot at once. The maids ceased, retreating quietly to the side. Part 3. Restoration of Greystone honor. The sisters lay slumped against the wooden bench, their silk gowns now rumpled, damp, and clinging. Their formidable pride had broken, shattered as completely as their physical strength. Lady Isabella rose, her red velvet gown sweeping across the stone floor with the sound of restored authority. She placed a hand firmly on each of their shaking shoulders, her touch firm but not punitive. "This was not done to merely shame you, but to guide you," she said. "The nobility of Greystone is service, not scorn. If you forget that distinction, you dishonor not only yourselves, but the sacrifices of your entire lineage. Remember this night and walk with dignity henceforth." The twins nodded weakly, tears clinging to their lashes. "Yes, mother. We understand the full consequence," they whispered, their voices small and brittle. The cords were loosened. The twins were helped to their feet by the very maids they had scorned just hours earlier. This time, there was no sneer, no superior glance. Cassandra and Juliana softly thanked the servants, their voices trembling with exhaustion and new humility. As they were led back to their chambers, Lady Isabella returned to her solar, the firelight catching in her golden hair. She knew her adult daughters would never forget the night the power of their own laughter was turned against them. In the venerable, silent halls of Greystone, the sacred order and honor were definitively restored.